All right, I was gonna record. There we go. Awesome. So thanks guys for joining me on this. I was just mentioning, so this is the recap of the Gong Show. This is the Tally in the Valley event. Gong Show is a 7-kilometer loop, and you're supposed to do it 24 times. So you run for 24 hours, and then you have to do it 7K every hour on the hour for 24 hours. And then the last lap is the person who finishes it the fastest wins it. And everybody who doesn't make it to the last lap is a DNF. So there's no times, there's no distance, it's DNF. Did not finish. And then so luckily we had 3 guys finish. And I think I was the last person to run or to drop out right before you guys continued on all night long. And it evaded me. And I think one of the things that I really struggled with is I actually wanted to cry after this run because I really felt I could do it, and I got through 16 hours of it, 16 laps, and I just didn't make the cutoff, and I was incredibly no, you can't, like, that was 112K, but so you can't really be, I was proud that I did that, but on the other hand, I was really disappointed I didn't achieve what I wanted to do. So I was so torn on both sides, a lot of pride and a lot of disappointment all at the same time, and then sheer exhaustion. So that might have played into it as well. But I'll show the screen here. I just want to show the results because you guys are beasts, and I think some street credit is long overdue for this stuff. You guys. So Ryan was first place here, and you can see everybody else that was a DNF. So Ryan was first place. The last lap is the only one that they counted. So they clocked him in at 4 minutes and 21 seconds on that last lap per kilometer. Andrew was second with 5 minutes and 12 seconds per kilometer. And then Craig was third with 5 minutes and 48 seconds per kilometer. So I think those times are all very respectable times for a 7K run for an average runner, let alone running 24 hours straight and running 160 kilometers or 161 kilometers prior to this. So do you guys want to share some thoughts on that last lap results, so that those times?
I love the last lap. That's my favorite. I know that sounds crazy, but it really is. Especially running with you two guys, that was a ton of fun because we've run together before, and we ran together through the night. And so I think we all knew that we're going to go as hard as we possibly could. And you don't know exactly what's going to be left in the tank. But for me, it's refreshing after running at a slower pace for 24 hours to finally just let the legs roll and go as fast as you can. And there's no pace at that point. It's just as fast as I can go. And that was it. Like,
that's such a unique way to say it. Like, just, you're not holding back at that stage. People are like, what do you mean you're holding back at 24 laps? But that is like, you are pacing yourself a bit. You're going quick to give yourself enough time. Like, how did you think about the runs? Like, were you planning on giving yourselves a lot of time in between loops, or just a little bit, or like, how did you do that? And actually, maybe we go around. Andrew, so you mentioned you've run the race before. How many times have you run the Gong Show?
So this was the 3rd time I finished.
Okay, cool. How about you, Craig?
This is my 2nd time. So the first time I did it was 2019.
Okay.
And I made it the 100 miles, but then I didn't race the last lap. So I waited 3 years to get back and actually run that last lap.
And why didn't you run the last lap? Was it didn't have steam, or what was the thoughts on that?
Ryan Nicholson, who won the 100 miler this year in like 17 hours and something, and he barely, I think, Ryan, correct me if I'm wrong, has the last lap record by like 9 seconds or something now.
Something like that, yeah.
Almost.
Yeah.
So I ran with him the majority of the last one, and the whole race I was saying, I just want 100 miles here. I'm just going to get my buckle and go home. And he told me he did it the year before in 2018. He didn't race the last lap. And he said for a year he regretted it. And I didn't heed his warning, and I took my buckle and I left. And unfortunately, with the pandemic and everything else, I waited 3 years to get back and at least run that last lap. And, for thoughts on the last lap real quick, I mean, to just go out there with these two, elite runners. These guys are complete beasts, and just to start that last lap with them and watch them quickly disappear into the distance was an honor for me. So I was super happy just to be there and to run with them, and to get to spend as much time as we did through the night was awesome. So
Yeah,
I fully agree with that. Yeah. And
yeah. How about you, Ryan? I know you have a really unique story on how many times you've run this event.
well, yeah, I've done it every year. So yeah, the first year was 2018, and then we missed a year due to COVID. So I've done it 4 times, but this is the first time I finished.
Awesome.
The first year, similar story. I did the 23 loops, got my buckle, and I was done with that. Satisfied in the moment, but in retrospect, completely regretted not going out and just seeing what I could do. Still love having that buckle. That was my first 100-mile finish, but yeah, that ate at me for a while. So I was really glad to get out there again and actually see what I could do this year. And it still blows me away. Like if we were to do it again next year, I couldn't guarantee you that I could do that. Like I don't know how it happened. It just worked out.
That's awesome. So it sounds like the common theme is if you run it and you make it and you get to qualify to run the last lap, run it no matter what, because there's probably going to be some regret if you don't. So.
Yeah, and the crowd vibe in that last lap, people are out there, and my wife has been there watching, and she said, especially this year, she said, we had no clue. Like all the people there who were waiting, they said, 3 strong runners went out, and you didn't know. You never know. And you really don't. Like I didn't know. Like Craig, you and I started that last lap kind of together for the first kilometer at least, and then I went a little bit ahead, and I had no idea if you're going to catch me or not.
Yeah.
Ryan, by the time I made it to the rail trail, I saw your wife was going back to the finish line, so I was like, okay. I'm still gonna go for it as fast as I can, but there's no, if I can't see you on the rail trail, I'm done.
But I had no real strategy. I was just going as hard as I could and then hanging on for as long as I could, and I had no confidence that I could last the full 7K. But it just happened.
You just went all in. It sounds like you weren't worried about bonking out or like running out of steam. You're just like, I'm gonna go all out and just.
No, I was worried. I was very worried. I was actually pretty sure that I was gonna make it like 3K and then just collapse. I'm just happy it didn't happen that way.
I think the way you pinned it up that hill, Ryan, I think Andrew and I were both kind of like, oh, there he goes. Because we hit that first hill and you went up there like someone who had just warmed up and was starting to run a race, not someone who had already run 100 miles. So I don't know, maybe that was, I think that was part of your plan to try and jump out early on the hill. It certainly seemed that way.
That first hill, is that the one?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, yes and no. I mean, most races, it is a bit of, I do have a bit of a strategy to get enough distance between me and the person behind me that maybe they can't see me and they're not urged to try to catch me. Meanwhile, we might actually be going at the same pace, only a few 100 meters apart. But I don't know, when you factor in the rail trail, that kind of demolishes that plan. But,
Yeah, well, and the rail trail, and so people who don't know the event, the rail trail is about 2 to 3 kilometers into it, and then it's this really long stretch, and there's very little shade too. So the hot parts of the day, it can be very tough, but it's cool because you get this like pump station beforehand, so you can douse yourself with water and cool down just a little bit. But where did you guys, when you were running that, where did you find you were the fastest on that course? Because this course for me, they said some hills is the description, but from my experience, this was a very hilly course. Is this hilly in your experience, or like how do you train, and like do you run on flat roads, trails? Like what do you guys do leading up to this?
I do a weekly hill training session with a group. It's just for fun. It's a 2K loop. It's nothing but up or down because we're pretty flat here in KW, and it's a small section for us. And yeah, so that's hill training. So is the course? I don't know. I would say it's rolling. rather than
Yeah.
hilly. Like
Yeah.
I ran
Yeah.
Falling Waters 2 weeks after in the Beaver Valley.
Yeah.
That's hilly.
Nice.
Yeah, I
It's
would say in terms of like trail races, this is relatively flat. Obviously, it still accumulates the elevation, and your legs will feel it after the full 24 hours. But yeah, relatively speaking, it's pretty flat.
yeah. And do you train in hills in particular, Ryan? Or
I basically, my training strategy is just to go out and do what's fun, and I usually find myself on like hilly, windy mountain bike trails.
Cool.
But actually, one of the things that I probably attribute my success in this race to this year is almost every week, or at least every week that I don't have something else going on Saturday, my family and I do our local 5K park run. And like, it's just 5K out and back on flat trails. I'm pushing the kids in the stroller and just going as fast as I can for that time. And yeah, I think that's been really good speed training for me, which is something I don't typically do.
So pushing something a little more resistance in it, and on an all-out speed. What about you, Andrew? Or Craig? Did you do hills or something leading into this?
Well, much like Ryan, I kind of go with what's fun, but I'm fortunate enough to I live down in Niagara, so we have Short Hills Provincial Park, which is very much like the Tally in the Valley course as far as hills and things go. It's kind of a few short, steep uphills. We have one hill that I like to do repeats on once a month called Hydro Hill down here. It's kind of a gravel road, pardon me, like an access road. So I'll go out there and people will see me going up and down there for 4 hours or something and think I'm completely insane. But, you know, you have to train your legs for what might happen in a race and what might come in a race. So I try to do that, but mostly I have to be enjoying it. I mean, you're not going to put in the training if you're not having a good time either, right? So.
Sure. All right. So speaking of that, you guys obviously run for very long periods of time. I think a lot of people wonder, do you listen to podcasts, music, nothing? Like, what's your go-to to stop your brain from imploding? If you're doing like a 4-hour run or something or longer.
Stay off the road.
Yeah.
I'm okay without music or a podcast if I'm off the road. If I'm on the road, then I'll listen to music or a podcast. But if I'm in the forest, I was out running last night along the Grand River for 2 hours and beautiful. There's nobody else there, single track. That's great for me.
Yeah, I'm pretty much musicless. Yeah, in training, I will never listen to anything. Just listen to nature, or if I'm on roads, that probably means I'm pushing the stroller, so I've got the kids to talk to.
Yeah, I'm pretty similar. I'll on roads, or we have obviously the recreational waterway here, and I live in Welland. So there's a long trail that goes all the way down to St. Catharines and back. If I do that paved path, I will listen to music because it's just monotonous running. There's a lot to see, but if I'm on the trails, I like to hear what's around me and listen to the crunching of my feet underneath and the leaves in the fall. I love running in the fall, so I'm unfortunately, the unofficial end of summer happened, but I like when the leaves start to drop and you get out there into the woods. So.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way too, but I tend to keep my mind going with a lot of music, just rolling in the background. But that's interesting to hear what you guys do. The trail definitely spices it up a bit and it makes it more connected, whereas the roads are definitely more dry in terms of excitement. I guess we should touch on charities too. Did you guys run for any charities that you were supporting during the run, or raise money during the run for it?
I didn't.
You, Craig?
No.
Okay, cool. I know Andrew did. Or sorry, I know Ryan did. But
yeah, so I was doing I often do a Running for Rhinos charity. So this year I was doing it in support of the IAPF, International Anti-Poaching Foundation. So just raising money to help protect rhinos and elephants in South Africa.
That's super cool. I'll show a picture of that. There you are. I was so credit to Susie's photos there. But you know, it was hot and you're running in a full rhino outfit for a loop. So it's 45 minutes of running in that outfit. Did it hold you back on the run at all? Or obviously it didn't on the accumulate for the last lap.
You should have worn it on the last lap, Ryan.
I did ask him that. Did we? I think we suggested he put it back on.
Yeah.
No, I actually felt relatively comfortable in it. I knew like I've done the race before where I tried to do the whole thing in the rhino costume, and I lasted I think 14 loops, and it wasn't as though that was a cool day. Like that was an especially hot day too. So I figured one loop is not going to have a huge negative impact. And it was, like I said, it was early on. I think it was the third loop, and yeah, it was just a fun thing to do.
Yeah, that's cool though. That's awesome. It's such a like a visual, right? So you have all these people running, and then you have this dude in a rhino suit. So that was a lot of fun. And it's cool that you raised awareness for it too. But and you know, the opportunity to be seen and raise money. So that's awesome. I know myself, I raised money for Big Brothers and Big Sisters. So it was a lot of opportunity to sort of, you know, do something and give them visibility and just letting people know that it's out there. So you know, I know any charity that gets exposure is hugely appreciative of that. So yeah. How many kilometers do you guys run heading into, like, train? So heading into the run, how many, either on a regular basis or heading into the run, how many kilometers do you run per week typically, or do you track it?
I like to put in the mileage in the wintertime. So my biggest mileage would be between January and probably April. So I try for at least 100 kilometers a week.
Okay.
So for those 4 months, and after that, the race season kind of starts. So then I'm racing, or then I move into some more specific, like hills and maybe a little bit of speed for me, I guess. But yeah, just big mileage in the winter.
Yeah, that makes sense. I know for me, I was putting in about 120K for a couple of weeks beforehand, but I still felt like there was a lot more prep I could do. Craig, what about yourself? How many K do you put in?
I do, my long run typically is anywhere from 20 to 40 in a week. I'll do a race a couple months out, like I did Sulphur Springs 100K this year, the end of May, to prepare for this one. But for me, it's more just time on feet. I get up super early, go to the gym every morning. I spend a lot of time on my bike in the summer, kind of do some brick workouts. I've done one triathlon in my life, but I find that kind of breaks up the monotony. I'll do a 3-hour ride and then an hour and a half or 2-hour run following it, just to get, you know, the time and you know, and I have a lot to do around the house, chasing all the kids and with chores and things like that. So that keeps me from taking naps or anything else like that. So for an event like this, I found that just being active and on the go kind of conditions your mind to be able to, you know, stay up that long and stay on your feet that long. So that's kind of what I focused on. I knew, like I said before, Ryan and Andrew were extremely stout runners, and I knew when it came to the last lap, I would give it all I could to try and hang with them as long as I could, but I knew there was a good likelihood I was going to watch them disappear into the distance, which it did, and I have no regrets with that, you know, but I was just happy to be there and make it the distance and get that monkey kind of off my back.
That's awesome. And out of curiosity, have the three of you run into each other on previous runs and before, or did you know each other prior to the event?
Well, Ryan and I raced this. This was our third time running this together, right?
Yeah.
And we've raced at other races. And
yeah, I think we did run for the Toad. Was that 2017 or something?
Yeah, just a bunch. And Craig, I'm sure we've run together.
Yeah, I know I've run with Ryan before. Andrew, I've done Run for the Toad. It's a small community, right? So we've all run in. I think I'm gonna try and chase Ryan around at Mono Cliffs in a week or so, right? So
yeah, that'll be fun. I saw your name on that. That's cool.
Yeah, it's still open. We were just looking at it the other day.
Yeah, you got to get in. We can We can have a rematch.
Are you both doing 50?
Yeah.
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 Ryan Nicholson is too.
I'm out.
That's awesome. I looked at that, but I hadn't considered it. It's not too far from me. I'm up at Newmarket, so it's
A beautiful course. Go.
I should check it out. It's a really nice place up there. It's really scenic. Those caves are amazing too.
Mhm.
That's awesome. And then and Ryan, what type of kilometers are you putting in before a race like that?
So pretty similar to Craig. Like I can have a plan laid out, but life generally gets in the way. But looking back, I had a pretty decent build up where I went from like 80K to 100K pretty consistently, and then a couple weeks of 120, 130, 150, and then actually tapered off. But this year I've been doing more cross training, especially on the bike. I find there's been a lot of days where I just can't motivate myself to go out for a long run, but I can always get on the bike in the garage on the trainer and just put on a movie and watch something. That's been good.
Yeah, the stationary of the movie can be a real treat for the mind, I think. So yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah. Occasionally I'll have like a pizza sitting beside me, and that's pretty motivating too.
That's awesome. And actually, speaking of pizza, I know you're a vegan too, right?
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. So so there's usually someone that says, oh, you can't run like that, but obviously you can, and put up some pretty impressive numbers. So that's kind of an interesting fact, I find. So
yeah.
What else was I going to ask? Okay, so nutrition. So this is one when I think I failed on pretty horribly. I think I could have got a couple extra laps that I had a better nutrition plan by the time. There's sort of different phases. In the beginning, I could eat pretty well, probably for the first 30K, and then it started getting really hot, and I was really dehydrated, and I just couldn't get stuff in, and I didn't bring a lot of liquid food. I was drinking like electrolyte drinks and things like that with sugars in them. And that helped to keep some energy going, but then I just couldn't. I don't think I could get enough calories in, and I just ran out of steam eventually, and then it cooled off, which was a nice treat, but I still didn't have enough energy in me to keep going. I know that looking around, so I didn't have any caffeine. I usually don't drink caffeine, so I was nervous to take some, but I think I should have. Just to help give a little pick me up, especially as it gets late in the night. And then liquid food too. So I was listening to someone else will do like mashed potatoes and like kids squeeze packs and stuff like that, so they can get them down quick. I love the pierogies that they made. They were serving pierogies there, and they were, I don't know, they were out of this world. They could have been probably the worst pierogies ever, but as far as I was concerned, they were the best pierogies I've ever tasted. I just squirting in the insides of it and drinking the mashed potatoes that were inside was phenomenal to me. I don't know. And maybe we should start with Andrew, because you're an anomaly in that you're the only person who runs this without any food or water during the lap. As far as I have seen, and you never carried water. And I asked you at one point, what's your strategy? Because I was so confused and mind boggled by it, but I'd love to hear sort of like what you're eating during the run, how you eat it. You're the only person I know that's done this, as far as I'm aware. So.
Yeah, it kind of drives my wife crazy. She's a runner too. I can eat a cheeseburger on the run if I want to. Like I just did. I'm lucky that way. I can't say that I've practiced or trained, so I can drink a liter of water. I like water. I don't really like sweet things, so I drank a ton of water, and I think they had scratch, so I'd mix that half and half. I probably brought about 4 coffees and a thermos of coffee. I love coffee, so I drank a lot of coffee, and I honestly just pack a variety of like food that I would normally eat. So yogurt, sandwiches, pizza, whatever. And so I ate. And the best advice I got before I ever did a 100-miler was, it's an eating contest. Start eating early and eat real food, and your stomach should be okay. And I did it the first time, and I was like, oh, I get legitimately hungry. Like if I'm doing a 50K and I don't have real food, by the end of that 50K, I'm dreaming about real food. Like get me something good.
Yeah.
So
So it's all
you
solid
ate,
food. So go ahead, Ryan.
you actually ate everything between the loops though. You didn't eat anything on their own.
Don't take anything out. So that's part of the reason I like to I'm high maintenance. I like to give myself like that 12-minute gap, 10-minute gap,
Yeah.
so I can get a lot of food in. And you laughed at me, but I brushed my teeth at the
I
end
was
of
going to say we have to
Yes,
get
yeah.
into the toothbrushing at some point here.
Yeah, I had
I saw that.
because I was eating like a little meal, and it's like that's a nice little trick to keep your body full. It's fresh mouth. It's like, okay, here we go, new lap.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a
Right.
nice trick, just to feel fresh, right?
I know in like previous years, I've been really stressed about getting in time to have enough time between the loops, but to have all the eating there too would only add to the stress, I would think. Like, I don't know. That's crazy.
It didn't stress me out. I enjoy the food.
Good.
It's just something to look forward to. But you don't get a dry mouth or anything like that. Like, because I couldn't swallow. I put food in my mouth and I had to spit it out because I just couldn't get it down. Even putting water in my mouth, I still found it was like I had nothing left. Did you run into that issue at all? Or
No.
your saliva glands are superhuman.
Yeah, I just keep really well hydrated. Like I probably drank a liter every lap.
Yeah, that sounds about right. And
It's
like in terms of liquid,
24 liters. I don't know. I hate carrying stuff
Yeah.
if I don't have to, and so 7K for me without carrying something is fine.
And did you find that you were able to get enough calories, or like, do you ever feel like your calories sufficient? Not because at a certain point, I just know that I feel like I'm running negative calories for the day anyways, but do you ever feel like just super hungry even though you are eating? And
I just
getting
have
through
like 2 slices of pizza instead of 1. Like
You're
for real.
amazing.
I don't know, when they're making pierogies, I had like a half dozen pierogies at one
Yeah.
break. So
It's awesome. That's crazy. All right. So that's I don't know how to do that. I'm gonna have to practice that, and just I'm gonna have to keep practicing it, I think. So well, what about you, Craig? What was your nutrition plan?
So my number one plan was 200 calories of tailwind per loop in my 500 milliliter handheld. So I was fortunate enough to have my son there crewing for me. So, and I think our tents were side by side. So you may have seen me tossing him my bottle between every lap. He had it all pre-measured in a Ziploc baggie. He would dump it in, mix it up for me, and I'd be ready to go. So that was a great help. As far as nutrition goes, I pack what typically is palatable for me, but not overly dense or heavy, if that makes any sense. Like cheese quesadillas with just very little cheese, just enough to flavor it, so it's not just a tortilla. I had pizza and everything in my cooler, which I didn't really touch. My son ate most of it anyway. So, and then I had some sweet potatoes that I ate, but I ate very little solid food actually throughout the course of the day. Most of what I was putting in, a couple mouthfuls seemed to be enough with the tailwind I was taking. There were 2 key points through the day that almost turned me. One was I went looking for popsicles. One of the sponsors, I don't remember which one, had a cooler full of popsicles, and I grabbed a popsicle and it ended up being a creamsicle. And just for me, like the dairy in the creamsicle just almost turned my stomach. And then at one point throughout the night, I started to get cold. Obviously, I was going into the pain cave, and thank goodness the aid station had chicken broth there, so I downed a cup of that, and that was a game changer. Speaking of caffeine, I want to say every 4th or 5th lap, I had like, I think 250 milliliter Red Bulls. So I would down one of those just to keep my energy level up. But my body is, I did some testing years back. My body's pretty good at finding energy when it needs to. And I actually, when I get up early mornings and head to the gym, I don't eat before I go work out. So I'll do my cardio, I'll do some weights and things, and then I'll eat right after. So to kind of teach my body to deal with the depletion that is coming. I don't recommend that for everyone, but obviously year over year, you kind of find out what works for you, right? So
A lot of people, yeah, a lot of people are doing the fasted workouts. That's it's kind of getting popular these days. Are you and yeah, it's amazing. It's very different strategies from Andrew to Craig. And I'm curious, Ryan, what was your strategy with nutrition and calorie intake?
So I've been held back a lot by nausea in the past. And it was actually Ryan Nicholson, who he was pacing me on an FKT attempt along the Niagara Bruce a year ago. And he had suggested just doing straight tailwind. And I've done that since, and that's worked out really well for me. I think during Cali, the only real food I ate was a tiny square of chocolate, and because I just felt like I needed a bit of a pick me up, and then I had that, and I started to not feel nausea, but like kind of sense the beginnings of it. So I just put that away. I didn't have any more, and aside from that, it was just tailwind all day, and I felt good doing it. I never actually felt hungry. So
really,
yeah, that works.
Yeah.
And I know in 2019, sorry, when I went to the last lap and didn't race the last lap, so I ran with Ryan and Everhard through the night, and the three of us were exclusively tailwind. So
that's it, eh? Getting you through. Are you guys sponsored by Tailwind? Is this a product?
I'd like to be.
And I feel bad because Scratch Labs is a sponsor for Happy Trails, but which is maybe equally good. I just got hooked on Tailwind a while ago, and that's just what I've stuck with. So.
Yeah,
that's funny. What else was I going to ask? Ryan, I noticed that your stuff, it looks like you almost had smoothies in like these containers that you had. Was it like blended up food at all, or is it just strictly tailwind in that stuff?
It was just strictly tailwind. It was pretty concentrated. I actually forget the numbers on it. I worked out I've got it written down somewhere, but pretty concentrated, and I would have 600 mils of that per loop, and then I'd just drink straight water between the loops, and that seemed to balance out things and change it up enough. And then I had the bottles I didn't bother labeling the flavors. I didn't focus on that, but I had them labeled as like caffeinated or non-caffeinated, and I would just mix that up.
Oh, okay. That's cool. So there was no nothing solid blended up in there. I do big smoothies every morning. Like they're huge, right? So yeah. I'm like, oh, maybe he's got my smoothie thing and he's just bringing that through the race.
I think I had one big smoothie in case I wanted it, but I never reached for it.
I don't know how you guys don't get hungry. I don't understand that.
I did brush my teeth once during the race too, and their advice, and it was a bit of a game changer. So
yeah. I was resistant to doing that, and my wife kept pushing me like it's a good thing. You need to brush your teeth, and then
it's like
I felt better.
It's like fresh socks, right?
Yeah.
Brush your teeth, fresh socks. It's a whole new game.
Sure. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I change my socks like every 4 loops, I think 5 loops, something like that. I pre-powder them so that when I put them on, they're just loaded with powder. And personally, I use Gold Bond because it smells nice at the end. It's like medicated, and when you put them on, it tingles. It feels this like cold burning sensation on your feet, right? Like it's it was something a lot of like that they get in the army. They're like, use Gold Bond on your feet. It feels amazing when you're marching or doing these super long runs. It's like walking on a cloud. So. But do you guys use foot powder? Or?
No,
I don't. I have, but I like using Squirrel's nut butter. That just lubricates everything nicely.
Really, eh? Nice hat. That's interesting. So like very different. No foot powder or anything. I always worry about my feet getting, hot and then blistering and stuff. So. Craig, I wanted to go back. Like, what was your favorite go-to? I know on hard, solid food. For me, I had a couple of pizza pockets because I didn't know. I was newer, as first time running it. I didn't know what I was going to like. But when I had pizza pockets, the insides just go down really, really easy, and they're pretty good. And you could nibble at the casing of it, and if I could get that down. But could you eat any like solids that you're like really liked eating on the run?
I never ate anything while I was running. I mean. sweet potatoes with a little bit of olive oil and some salt is always good. It really, I try to bring a variety. I had some bacon in my cooler too that I just find, because protein, fat, and salt and that, but I wasn't really feeling it. I went mostly, like I said, mostly tailwind and cheese quesadillas. Not much else as far as solid food. I think I had a freezy at one point that I stole from one of the volunteers. He had his cooler sitting there, and he was nice enough to let me have it. But I don't know, maybe Trevor. I thought I looked over at one point and you were eating a bowl of cereal.
I was, yeah.
Okay.
So it was Cheerios
that's
and
one
chocolate
thing.
soy milk.
Okay, so that's one thing that stood out to me, because I looked over and saw you eating that, and I saw some sort of milk in there, and I was thinking that's not going to go well.
No, no.
Did that do anything for your stomach, or was that okay for you?
Yeah, it was totally fine because it was chocolate soy milk, so there's no like curdling or anything like that, and it's basically like it's loaded with sugar too. So, and the Cheerios I find are really easy on the stomach. So, and it's wet, so I didn't have a problem choking on it. So, yeah, that was good. Pizza pockets were fun as well, but yeah, those were sort of my big things. I couldn't, even afterward, at a certain point my stomach turned. I'm like, I couldn't get any more food in me, and I'm like, I think that was part of it.
Sorry, go ahead.
No,
the other thing I ate quite a bit of was like a honey stinger, the wafers. I don't know if you've ever seen those. And I think I may have had a couple gels through the night. I made a conscious decision early on before the race to try and only eat solid food when I would normally eat solid food. So, maybe up till 8 p.m., 9 p.m. And then after that, my body isn't normally processing any solids anyway. So that was when I decided that's when I'm just going straight up tailwind, unless my body tells me you need to put something else in me. So
that's cool.
Yeah,
that's a good point. Andrew, were you eating 24 hours or did you stop as well?
He wakes up in the middle of the night and eats a whole meal and goes back to sleep, right, Andrew?
Well, no, I don't typically do that. Just when I'm running, I get hungry. I wouldn't, we've already had our dinner and I won't eat anything until tomorrow morning. But when I wake up, I'm hungry. So
yeah,
I don't know.
So you're a camel in between runs, so no food, and then you get back and you just scarf it down. I bet it sounds like your running is more like a hibernation to you than an actual run. So stock up on food and then go for a run.
Yeah, so, I don't honestly, I think before I started doing ultras, I was doing adventure racing for a long time, like day-long adventure races, multidisciplinary. So using a lot of upper body, so different physical parts, bike, run, paddle. And so we were burning, 10 to 15,000 calories a race, and we just had to eat. There wasn't a choice. Like there's no way you were finishing those kind of races and it was cold. So liquid nutrition wouldn't do it. So maybe that's when I started to just get used to eating real food all the time.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's a good way to go. I hear I guess there's a bit of a mix when I listen to podcasts with the ultra runners who are doing the world stage thing. You hear a bit of both. Like Dean Karnassus was eating pizza on the run, and then you hear like Courtney Delwalter, she's doing mostly liquid and gummy bears and like mashed potatoes and stuff like that. So it's quite a mix of personality, I guess, depending on what they prefer. So what did you guys do for the heat during the middle of the day? That crushed me. And all I knew is I just have to keep going and wait until it stopped being 30 plus Celsius. And maybe we could do the same roundtable and just like, how did you cope? What was your strategy to try and get through that heat? I know at one point we're all taking advantage of that cold water after the 2K and just before that long straight run on the rail trail there. But Andrew, what was your strategy for the heat?
I'm not sure I had a strategy. Again, I'm lucky the heat doesn't really bother me. I'm a profuse sweater, so that would be my strategy, I guess. So I just sweat a lot and keeps me cool. I hate wearing a shirt when I'm running, so I actually prefer it when it's warm enough to run without a shirt.
That makes sense. So you keep cool, and then in between, as you mentioned, you're drinking lots of fluids to get you through it. So, are you guys taking salt tabs or like replenishing with that electrolytes to try and get through?
I took salt tabs.
Okay. I noticed they help me a lot.
They help me
Otherwise I
with
start urinating a lot, and that's I think a lack of absorption. But when I do take them, I seem to soak it up, and it goes. I sweat it out rather than just disposing of it. So probably TMI, too much information for most people out there. But hey, this
Not
is
for trail
alternative.
runners. Yeah.
I'm the one that crossed the line on that. So, but and then so Craig and Ryan didn't take any salt tabs. You guys were I don't know how this is going to show up afterwards. If people will see only the person who's talking or not. So, but and you guys don't on your long runs, you don't find you have headaches. Like I'll get a headache if I don't take enough sodium in during it. You guys haven't experienced that issue?
No, I think that just comes in with training. If you do like a gradual buildup, your body habituates to it. Plus, most of my long runs, I'll still take tailwind, so that's got just about everything you need.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, that makes sense. Did you guys have anything else you wanted to add for nutrition, or any other race prep that you think is helpful?
This race it still boggles my mind. Like I still, even with the success, I don't know the best way to prepare for this race. I just don't get it. Because it's ultimately a 7-kilometer race that you just have to get through 100 miles beforehand.
Yeah.
And I don't know the best way to balance those two aspects.
Find some good company on the course.
Well, yeah, totally.
Makes a huge difference. Every year I've run it, I've found somebody to run with. That can break you at 2 a.m. if you're on your own in the dark. I think
that's what I noticed.
A huge difference.
Yeah, like Craig and Andrew, you guys were chatting the whole way. Like you ran pretty much together. Talked as far as I was around. But I find running and talking actually uses more energy for me. And I was worried about talking with people. Like I did talk for a bit, but at a certain point when I was starting to struggle more, I'm like, I said, I just got to shut up and run. And then, but you guys seem to just, find a pace, find a rhythm, find entertainment on the run. Was that?
We also had at Craig, like there were a few laps we didn't talk much at all, like when things were tough, but it's just still nice to have somebody there beside you.
Yeah.
I think a big part of this race, I mean, the three of us and Trevor, you and the four of us included, we all came in fit enough to do this race. I think as long as you manage your nutrition, and then it becomes a big mental game, and having that, trail friend alongside you, like through the night, the three of us, I know at one point, Andrew and Ryan were running side by side on the rail trail, and I was hurting to stay in between them a little back. And I just started listening to their feet hit the cinders on the rail trail, and that just became a rhythm to me that I just started following. And had I been out there by myself, then you start thinking, oh well, I can't do this. But I just, and every once in a while, I know I had a plan to run to certain spots, but then Andrew, we kind of found each other's throughout the day where we wanted to run to. I know I had my tree, Andrew.
You had your tree.
So there was a couple of hills on the backside of the course where the one time I know I thought it was a ladder hill on the course, and I stopped running, and he's like, what are you doing? And I said, that's not my tree. He's like, no, your tree's at the next hill. So we had to running at that. Just those sorts of things break up the monotony. And if you're not with someone at that point, you don't have those moments that kind of, make the run extra special, right? So
yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I mean, I fell. Was that in the nighttime or before the night? I fell flat on my face, like I did a full-on Superman.
I think we all did, didn't we? Or
I saw Ryan. Ryan, he did it once, and
yeah. And if I'd been alone, I might have had a little cry. But
yeah,
yeah.
I think that's so important. Just like it comes back to like just enjoying it. That was my big strategy. Just figure out how to enjoy it, because there was a couple times where on paper I was doing something stupid. Like I was going too fast because I wanted to catch up to Ryan Nicholson, he was trying to push the pace the whole time. But I just wanted to run with him for a little bit and chat, and I would like run ahead to other people and then slow down, and eventually you find your rhythm. But if you can occupy your mind just by socializing during this whole thing and getting to know people, and then you'll get through it. It makes it so much more fun.
Yeah,
I think we would all agree that I mean, part of it's just the trail community. It's more fun. People are encouraging and supportive. If you asked me to do this kind of race on the road, not a chance.
Yeah.
You couldn't pay me to do this kind of race on the road.
Yeah, it'd be tough. I agree. The environment and the people there, the cheering and seeing when you're really hurting and you're in that pain cave and you're just really struggling, to see another human face who can not be hurting is such a relief, and it can really pick you up. And I found that, and that's one of the things that I take from these events is the energy from them. Even people who volunteer, they're not getting paid. They're there for 24 hours. They're doing all these things just out of the goodness of their heart, and there's such positive influences to people that are in such rough spots. And that is so motivating for me to want to come back and do more of them. And it's so much fun. And the other runners are great, cheering each other on. I would be running by and they're like, "Hey, great job." I'm like, "Hey, you're doing a great job." Or you run by someone who's just walking because they're on a different course or different run, and we're cheering them on, and that's a lot of fun for me. And seeing other people too when they're pushing their limits, that is so motivational for me to see. I did a 100-mile run before, and everybody's like, "That was amazing what I did." I was like, "You should have seen it from where I was standing." Everybody that I saw, they were so inspirational to me. And those are amazing things to watch. It's human performance, no matter what level someone is at, they're always pushing their limits. And that's incredibly inspiring to me. So I love these things for that reason. Yeah. So speaking of probably the more difficult times when humans do get you through things, running injuries. So I happened to lose 2 toenails, and my ankle was pretty swollen at a certain point. Well, afterwards, during it, I didn't feel it. My right shin was really sore, but I didn't know that there was an injury. I still have to get it checked out, but it seems to be recovering slowly on its own, and I'm still running. So it's, I'm running pretty good paces and distance, so I'm not concerned. But the toenails seem to be growing back. But I'm curious what you guys, if you walked away with any running injuries, or if you're coping with them, or if you just, I know a lot of people just always lose toenails or stuff. Curious what your running injuries are. Running 100 miles is obviously very taxing on the body, so curious to see how it affected you post run.
Well, I raced 2 weeks later, so.
How far was that race?
That was a Falling Water Trail Marathon.
Oh, okay, very nice.
Beaver Valley. Yeah, so I don't think I was injured, but I was definitely sore for a few days. I had a little trouble getting around. I find getting on a bike a day or two after really helps, just moving the legs, spinning. So I think the next day I got on my bike already.
That makes sense. For me, I never actually got muscle soreness. I was sore sort of in the joints and the ankle, but my muscles never actually got sore. I think they didn't understand that I actually had a workout. So I don't think they knew what to call it. So they're like, "We're just not going to recover from this one." So yeah, it's but you guys have, it sounds like you have a different fitness level, that you do these things more often than I do. So I'm looking forward to pushing the distances as I continue to evolve in this sport. But what about you, Craig? Sorry,
just one last note. I can tell you that last 7K did my legs in.
Yeah.
That speed, that speed trashed them. Like, I was sore before, and after that 7K, it's like, okay, I don't know if I'm gonna make it to the car.
That's how you gave it your all, though, and it's worth it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's amazing. How about you, Craig?
No real injuries. I lost toenails 2 months earlier at Sulphur Springs with a different pair of shoes. And actually, I came into this race with
looks like you're. Oh, hold on, Craig. I think your internet connection is a little bit slow.
I tried them twice on the treadmill for about 30 minutes at a time.
So brand new shoes.
And
Craig, you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah, the internet seemed to slow down on you there. Could you repeat that for us?
Yeah, sorry. So, and no real injuries. I mean, I came into this one without a couple toenails from Sulphur Springs a few months earlier. So, I was actually wearing brand new shoes that I had purchased a week before that I had only tried out twice on the treadmill at the gym. So I wasn't sure how it was going to go, but I bought them because they had a higher drop. So to try and stabilize my Achilles a little bit. And I ended up wearing them for the entire 24 hours. So they were pretty well. I mean, I had a bit swollen feet afterwards, but otherwise all good.
That's to be expected, I think. Actually, I ran in a brand new pair of shoes too. I had never worn them. And I was worried about sizing, and I tried to size that was a little bit bigger, but these particular shoes I'd never worn. I took them out of the box that morning. So, and it worked out well too. So I wasn't, everybody says, do you have to break in a pair of shoes? And remarkably, I was happy with them. So it's, yeah, it worked out well.
So Trevor, I want to ask you what happened? Like what finished the race for you? You said you didn't make the cutoff. I'm curious.
Yeah,
you were looking strong. You were going for the first 8 or 9 hours. You were looking really good.
It felt good too. Yeah, it felt really good. I found the first 2 laps, I was just running to run. And then I found the rhythm. And then I found in my head, I kept repeating over, find the easy kilometers. So the down the hill, I would just, kind of like sliding the car into neutral and just let the feet go follow me underneath, and I would just slide down the hills, and that worked really, really well. I felt I was conserving a lot of energy. The heat really got to me during the day, and I stopped consuming as much calories, and I think that was part of it. And then I couldn't get the calories back in, so I was running, but I was struggling, and I had a hard time. Like I felt winded a lot, so I felt like I couldn't quite catch my breath. Like you guys were running and talking, I didn't hear you breathing heavy at all for any part of it. And I always felt that I was really breathing heavy for it. So I'm like, something felt different, but I just kept running. And then the last lap, the second last lap that I ran, I only had about 3-4 minutes before we had to start again. And I knew I was really pushing it at that time. And I'm like, and then I tried on the last lap, and I was running 10 minutes per kilometer on the last lap, and I knew I just wasn't going to make it. And I pushed. I'm like, I was pushed, giving it my everything, trying to move my legs, and they just wouldn't go faster. And then I ended up just not completing the last lap because of that. So that's kind of what happened to me, which was different. And I think having a longer period of what I'm gathering from this is you're doing a lot of kilometers on a regular basis. You're doing more runs than I have. I haven't done any other runs other than just my own personal runs that I've been working at. So I think doing more runs, like races, would be a good idea. Playing with the nutrition a bit would help. Maybe a bit of caffeine just for pick me up. During it, I was like, remember how you feel now and never do this again. And then I finished it, and I was so proud and disappointed at the same time. I'm like, and the wheels are turning in my head saying do it again. So, and I had to, it's a puzzle. It's very much put the fitness together, put the nutrition together, and just run a race and go do it. And I like the 7K reset every hour, and it's just sit, pace yourself. And I like that. So it is appealing to me. I think I'd like to try it again. I think I just need to get in more kilometers on a regular basis, and just keep my mileage up a bit, so that I'm more prepared, because I really only started training about running in decent, about 6 or 8 weeks beforehand. I was putting about 100K weeks. And then other than that, I was probably running 40, 50K weeks. So it wasn't very much, nor was I running hills or anything fancy like that. So, but yeah, I think it's growing on me. I want to run it again. So I'll have to see. I have to figure out crew and everything else too. So I think the crew members are a big part too. Having someone there who's willing to, sleep in between loops and look at you when you feel like, we all look like death at one point, I'm sure, right? And if you know what we look like normally, and then I know myself, I didn't look very good. And I was almost nonverbal at a point too. I'm like, water, ice, salt, like just as all I could get out of my mouth when I was talking. I didn't have a lot in me. So, I had a very patient and generous crew member. So the crew is a very big part of it, but yeah.
Yeah, I've attempted this without a crew before, and I can tell you, having someone there, even if they're not actually doing a whole lot, like I had everything laid out where I could just grab the next thing. All my wife had to do this time around was just pour the next 600 mils into the bottle for the next loop, and then just chat with me for 10 minutes or so, and let me know how much time I had till the start. But yeah, it makes such a difference. It really does.
Yeah. And she was so positive too throughout all of it.
She was, yeah.
She's, you know, and it's hard too to watch a spouse go through that struggle and do it voluntarily too. And that's, you've done this for a while, so she's more acclimatized to it. But I know when I first started doing the 100-mile, my family was like, "You're going to die, or you're going to break yourself." And I'm like, no, people do this. It's not just me. There's lots of people do that. They're like, "Who do you know that does that?" I'm like, "David Goggins." So, they're like, "Oh, former Navy SEAL." I'm like, yeah, I read his book. He said he does it all the time. And then Jesse Isler, I'm like, yeah, I read that book. So they can do it, I can do it, no problem. But for people who are new to it, everybody I think is just saying, okay, marathons are the big thing. And now people are, that used to be the big run, and now people are doing the 100-mile ultra marathons, and that's the new boundary. And then that, even on a more quiet scene, is now getting pushed to say, okay, 100 miles is no longer the boundary. Here's 200 or 300 miles, and people are doing 4 or 5 day runs, and they're sleeping a couple hours each night, but they're pushing like, you know, 300 kilometers in a single run, and they're doing it in record time. And people are pushing the 24 hours, like you're saying. Ryan Epson ran in what, 17 hours or something. Like, people are running these things incredibly fast. 17 hours to do 160 kilometers is incredible. So there's obviously a fair bit of work that goes into it. You don't just wake up and run it. But yeah, my family was very nervous for me when I did it the first time, and then I continued to do these things and built up a trust level and to say, hey, I'm going to be okay. I'm not going to die. Because I'm monitoring myself, right? Like that's if I know I can't do it and I need to step out, I know I will. But you also need someone who's in the race with you, who's not going to say, you don't look so good, you should stop. That's the last thing you need when you're really hurting. You need someone to say, well, actually, I prefer someone to say nothing. I don't want to hear good. I don't want to hear good job. I don't want to hear you got this. I'm like, just give me my stuff and I'm just going to go. I don't want to hear anything positive or negative. So that's my preference. But
I think with the loop format, or the backyard ultra format, that's becoming ever more popular these days. I personally find it more exciting, but also way more difficult than a straight up 100-miler.
Oh yeah.
If you do a straight 100-miler and you want to sit and cry for 25 minutes, well, you have time to do that. When you have to go every hour on the hour, you don't have, like, I'm crying with Ryan and Andrew in the middle of the woods, and thank goodness no one else was there to see that. But you know, so that's kind of the allure of it. If you don't have the time commitment to run the 200 miles and you want to push yourself beyond just the straight 100-miler, the loop format is good. I mean, I would like to do a longer backyard ultra at some point. I made a joke at one point, I think, when we were running, that maybe Jeff will extend it to 36 hours because we have time. There's another race starting and they're going in the park till that time, right? Thankfully, no one listened to me, but there's always that allure to see what you can do to make it more and more difficult. But I really like the loop format for the reason of to see how far you can push and you don't have that rest. And also because the sportsmanship and the friendship you form with your co-runners and your trail mates, right? Like we did through the night. And we spend so much time together. I'll never forget that 24-hour period as long as I live. And I'll never forget the time I spent with Ryan and Andrew, you know, in this race. It creates wonderful memories. So me personally, I would recommend anyone to try it. You'd surprise yourself what your body can do. You know, I mean, don't get off the couch and try it, but if you're a runner, it's a great event to try. So
yeah, it's I would say it's at least 50% mental, if not more.
Yeah.
I mean, any kind of race like that is mental. Everyone hurts.
Yeah, someone said to me about 80 or 90K, and they're like, how do you feel? I'm like I should feel after running 80 or 90K. So pretty horrible, but that's okay. You just keep going. And it's not that you feel horrible as in you're breaking down. You just know that your body's tired and it would rather rest than run. And that's kind of my takeaway from it is, but I know, Ryan, I didn't get a chance to touch on injuries. Did you walk away with any more injuries or anything different than you started the race with?
No, honestly, I came away pretty unscathed. I had a pretty sore throat from my breathing on that final loop, just going the whole time. But aside from that, no, I actually pleasantly surprised myself that 2 weeks later I was able to throw down a pretty fast 14.4K loop in Mono Cliffs. I was trying to break an hour, didn't quite get it, but still got my fastest. But that doesn't matter.
It's good though.
Yeah, I was happy with that. My strategy for recovery is like I always force myself to go out and do something the next day, move those legs, because as much as you're hurting that next day, if you do nothing, you'll be hurting so much worse on the second day. That's been my experience anyways. So yeah, physically I was pretty good. I know I had some mental struggles that I hadn't dealt with in the past that really were, it was more annoying than anything during the race. But yeah, that was crazy. I just kept, my mind kept telling me that something bad happened, even though I knew it didn't. And then I would emotionally respond against my will as though it happened. And that happened, that went over and over again for like 2 hours. It was just so annoying. And I don't know where that came from, but yeah, Karen was a little worried about me when that was happening, but yeah, fortunately we got through it. And I think the sunrise had a big positive impact. I think that was when that turned around.
That's, you know what, that's not the first time I've heard that from ultra runners too. I know on some of my runs, sometimes my brain just goes to places where, you know, you can have negative emotions and then you kind of feel crappy, and you know you have so much time to think and your body's so beat up, and you know that's why having other people there and the sunrise, it's amazing. I think too, having the one thing that I always keep in mind whenever I'm running overnight is that as soon as the sun, even just before it starts to, you can see a sunrise, you hear the birds, you hear everything else starting to come alive. And that is a big energizing factor where it rejuvenates you a little bit. And as soon as you can see the sunrise, it's like, where did I have this energy? I didn't change my nutrition. I didn't get any more sleep. And if anything, I only ran further, but for some reason, I feel like I have more energy as soon as the sun comes up. That, you know, forcing the body to work when it really feels like it should be sleeping is an odd thing. But then the sun comes up, you're like, I missed last night, no problem, let's just do today. And it gets excited again, and the body just, the spirit and the mind just picks up for another day. So yeah, that's the thing that's most people experience. So
yeah, yeah, for me it was so vivid. Like actually there was a point where I got stung in the eyelid, and it hurt, but like I convinced myself that my eyelid swelled shut, and like I had to deal with the fact, like I had to convince myself, no, that didn't happen, you're fine, your race is still going on. And there was another time where like I tripped but didn't fall, and convinced myself like if you fell you would have broken your leg and that'd be the end of the race. And emotionally, like it was the end of the race for like 10 seconds until I could tell myself no, that didn't happen.
Yeah, there's some of those downhills were pretty steep, and as it gets dark and your brain's not thinking and your feet aren't moving as fluidly as they would do, that was part of my concern about overnight as well, is that I would just misplace my foot and fall down a hill. So I had to be a lot more diligent and careful as I was running it. But did you actually get stung? Like, but was it a bee or a mosquito or something? Or?
I don't know what it was. I think a deer fly maybe, or whatever.
Ugh.
Bugs were going on. It just flew right into my eye. Yeah.
Brutal. Yeah, wildlife, you have to worry about that. That's that's crazy.
Yeah.
Holy cow. So did you guys have anything else you wanted to add? I know we've gone through a lot. I've absolutely loved hearing all of your insight. I think I'm a much wiser runner for having had this conversation, and I'm looking forward to pushing the next boundary, knowing that like I heard your experiences and some of the things that you guys are doing. So I think it's going to be a huge help for me. And hopefully other people that are watching this will also gain some insight and be able to incorporate some of these things into their running and whatnot. But do you guys have anything else that you wanted to add?
This is great. I have to ask for some advice. My wife signed me up for my birthday for the Quebec Mega Trail Have either of you guys run that?
No. How far is that?
It's a point-to-point 100-mile
Okay.
along the St. Lawrence. So it's got massive elevation. It's 2 nights. You start at 8 p.m. You go through the night, and for me, it'll be 2 nights.
That's Mont Saint Anne and Charlevoix and everything, right? Through there.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm
That's
a
a
little,
little different than the hills that tally in the valley.
yeah. Like this is the first time I'm thinking I'm actually gonna have to do like a little research and like come up with a proper training plan because I don't really do that. Like, so I don't seriously like. You guys want to do it?
Want to? Yeah. Available to? No.
No.
But I think a big thing is that, like, even with the difference in elevation, you've done the distance before, so like that's probably not going to hold you back too much. You know you can do it, right?
Right. Yeah, but just the point to point for me through the night twice, not knowing the trail, like there's a comfort in doing a looped course
Yeah, true.
that I know versus something totally unknown and having to navigate at night. I mean, have you guys had to navigate at night before?
Yeah. I am a big, I'm big on prepping for that, like looking at the maps, memorizing as much as you can, know exactly where you need to be. Because especially in a point-to-point race, the thing that messes me up is if there's like too big of a distance between markers and you're like telling yourself you're not on course anymore, then like I get like anxiety with that. So if you know the course as best as you can, that just sets you up for success.
Okay.
I think my advice for that one, Andrew, I've never done that one, but would be to embrace the adventure and try and find, like Ryan said, go in well prepared, knowing most of the course. And obviously, you're not going to recon the whole thing, but know the map, know where the major aid stations are and things. Also, if you can find someone who's looking at the same pace of you once you get out on the trail, and you have that trail buddy, especially through the night, it doesn't matter if it's a looped course or a point-to-point course, that's invaluable if you have someone there with you, right? So
okay.
If I can do it, I will definitely touch base with you. I don't know, I have to check my schedule for next year yet, but that's one I've always been thinking about, so I'll take a look.
Yeah, well, I talked about it and I've been talking about it now as kind of the next step because I've only done the looped 100-miler and I kept bringing it up, and so lo and behold, surprise.
Now you're committed.
Yeah.
Yeah, the nav part would be fun. I wanted to ask you guys 2 questions. I had 2 more questions I wanted to ask. For if you've done sort of the longer trail, I know Craig, you mentioned that you did Sulphur Springs, and the difference. Do you have a preference between sort of the backyard loop versus a longer run like Sulphur Springs, where you're out, you have to carry all your stuff more? That's obviously going to weigh down a bit. Is there, big differences between the two that you find, or any thoughts on that?
It's really a matter of different preparation. I mean, more enjoyable, like I said, the backyard loop, because you get to know your running mates so much more. I really like that. The trail running community is wonderful. It doesn't matter if it's a point-to-point race, if it's a loop race, no matter what, you're going to find good people up there. But I like the backyard loop, but there's a different challenge with longer loop, point-to-point, where you have to carry a lot more with you, and we're all out there to challenge ourselves. So you have to go into it thinking that, I want this, not someone's forcing me to do this, right? And if you do that, and you do your homework and you seek advice from people that might be in the know, then they're all very enjoyable. I can't really say I like one more than the other. I think as I get on in years, I like the backyard loop format because I'm not as fast as I used to be, but I seem to be able to go for a long time. So that kind of suits my wheelhouse right now. So.
Well, on the speed thing, I don't think 5:48 after pace after a 24 hours is slow, but for you, perhaps I'll let that one slide. So, Yeah, Ryan, did you guys have anything? It sounds like, Andrew, this is going to be your first 100-mile distance run, like rather than the loop.
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, I'm curious to know how that one goes. You have to do like a post cap on that one, post recap. So
Yeah, I don't really do that kind of thing,
no.
but yeah, I'll send you a message.
Yeah. Let me know how it goes. I'll track you on it. So
Yeah.
if they could do that, so that's amazing. And Ryan, have you done long, like the longer, I guess the longer track versus the loop? Or?
Well, for 100 miles, I've done just Tally in the Valley and then Sulphur Springs. So Sulphur's loop base as well, but it's 20K. Is it 20K?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And yeah, I think the two big differences for me is that like at Tally, we're not pushing the pace really at any point until that final loop. So like you're just relaxed, whereas the whole time, I mean, you can have different strategies, but the whole time in any other 100-miler, you're trying to push the pace. You're trying to keep going as fast as is reasonable to go at that time. And then if you need the break, you can take it. Like I remember stopping for like half an hour at a time just to like dry myself, and we had like horrible weather that year, and yeah, like I needed those breaks. And thinking back to the year that I did Tally in the rhino costume the whole time, like I lasted way longer than I should have. Like I did 14 loops I think that year, and the reality though is if I could have taken an hour off and brought my body temperature down and all that, I could have kept going. Like I ended up laying down and actually went to sleep for like 2 hours, and then I woke up and I felt amazing. So yeah, the format of the backyard ultra just doesn't allow you to take breaks, or at least not significant breaks. So
And that's kind
that's
of
the
the
big
appeal to
challenge.
it too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a puzzle.
Yeah. It's you're forced. It's neat because you're like, if I can do this, I know I could run 100 miles, and I'm going to get in a 24-hour time for it. I'm not going to do it in 36 or whatever. That, like, a lot of very respectable times will happen, right? There's a long distance to do it in, but it forces you to get it in a good time. So if you can crack that code and get it, the training, and just find a way to keep going until the end, you get that 100-mile done in 24 hours, which is a personal goal for me. So yeah, I think that would be super cool.
Yeah.
The last question I had for all of you guys, I wanted to ask, what advice would you give to someone looking to do this run? I don't know, Andrew, if you have any thoughts on that. For me, I would just say just try it, and if you train as much as you can, like they've heard how much everybody's putting in, so they're 100K weeks, and I find that so that's kind of what we're running to get to that 14 hours of running. But I would just say, if you don't do it this year, go back and try it again next year, and try it again the year after, because you're going to learn, you're going to grow, and as an individual you're going to just get better and better. And it's a really, I heard someone say, physically maybe it's not the best for you, but spiritually it's amazing. And you'll always, I'll remember this day is for the rest of my life. And so how many days of the year can I look back on and know that was an amazing day in 2022, and know all the details about it. And so I think the more days that we get that we can remember amazing days from in that year, I think is a real gift. But for me, I think it would be just to go and try it first off. And either lead up to it, they have 6-hour, 12-hour, 24-hour, but the Gong Show is a really unique event. So I would say just try it. And if you don't complete it, but always go with the mentality of I'm going to finish that. I heard a lot of talk in the beginning from people. There's nothing wrong with it, but what I found, I couldn't live like that, where people were saying, I'm just hoping to make 6 loops, or I'm just hoping to make 12 loops. In my eyes, even though I didn't complete it, I said the whole time, I have to try and finish this no matter what. I have to get all of it done, not just a set amount. I couldn't set the finish line before I started it. So those are some things I think, but I would just say just go try it and see what happens and see what you're capable of, because we're often more capable of achieving things that we don't even realize. So this is a great event to try that at. Yeah. How about you, Andrew? Any thoughts, or any of the other guys if you want to chime up first?
Feel free to jump in, guys.
Yeah, so with the whole finish line mentality, like I before I even like looked at the roster to see who I was running against this year, or in reality who I was running with, I had the mentality of like, I'm going to do 24 loops even if everyone else drops off by loop 12. Like I'm gonna keep going, because just being the last person standing isn't enough. I need to get that 24th loop. So I made sure that mentally I was gonna get there. And then yeah, I fully agree. Like just try it. The way I've gotten to where I did with this race is just trial and error. I've I've had varying success. Last year being my worst year, and that came down to being so poorly rested the weeks leading up to it. So that's one bit of advice I would say. Like, make sure you're well rested, that you're not feeling sleepy on the first few loops, because then there's no way you're getting anywhere with this. So
Yeah, that can't help.
no.
And I think the one thing I would maybe say is just run a pace that feels comfortable, that works for you. Like I never really worried about other people. The first time I ran the race, it's like, oh, this feels comfortable. It gives me enough time to do what I want to do. I feel good. I wore a watch this time, but just to track the distance. I didn't have, I never typically wear a watch when I'm racing. I'm on the trail. Sometimes it's slower, sometimes it's faster, but out there for a good time and want to feel good the whole time. So
yeah,
I think preparation is key. Ton of mileage, and going with the positive mindset. You're gonna have fun, and as long as you think you're having fun, fool yourself.
I think to echo what Ryan said, because him and I were sort of in the same situation. I went in thinking there's no way I'm not doing that 7K race loop. It doesn't matter who else is there with me, because I waited so long to get back at it. The other thing I would say that I found the first time I did this event was it really changes you emotionally and spiritually on a certain level. And it changes your, I don't want to sound too philosophical or anything, but it almost changes your outlook on life. Whereas you realize what you can put your body through over a 24-hour period, and what, the pain cave really kind of looks like. And the mundane daily tasks that you're, charged with doing, whether it chores around the house or in your daily job, become that much easier. Because, if I'm carrying a heavy laundry basket up from the basement or something like that, I don't complain about it, because, A, I consider this is just making me stronger, and B, I know, you've been there to almost to the limit. And it really, it's very difficult to describe until you do it, but that would be my motivation to suggest to anyone, if you feel fit enough to try it, and you're up for the challenge, go in with the mental capacity to think, I can do this. And, even when you think you're about to quit, go out for the one more loop, because a lot can change in a short period of time when you're out there, and when you're surrounded by other runners who are encouraging and being positive and everything else. So and you'll come out the other end a different person. At least for me, that's what ultra running has done for me to this point. So.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that. The focus part, if you're out there running for 4 or 5 hours as a training run, to get and sit for a morning of work, I found it's so much easier just to sit and focus, and I can get so much done, and my ability to just focus on things increased huge, because I was used to just doing something, and when you're not allowed to deviate from what you're doing in the moment, it trains your focus and your ability to get things done. That was one of the big takeaways that I got when I started training for these things, was my ability to bridge that lesson into other areas of my life. So I definitely echo that saying. So, yeah. Well, it's amazing, guys. I want to say you guys are all incredible athletes. You may not call yourselves athletes, but you definitely are. You're beasts as well. So the times speak for themselves. And I would really, really appreciate getting together on this call. This has been invaluable to me, and I'm sure other people are going to get a ton of gold nuggets out of this that they can incorporate in their lives. And I really, really appreciate you guys spending the time here and sharing this with me. I've really appreciated it. So, and on the run was fantastic running with you guys too. I just, everybody's there, and you just had this can-do attitude, and just went with it. It was so much fun. So, definitely a life-changing event for me. So, but thank you all to being here. It's really, really appreciative. So,
yeah, it was a ton of fun doing this tonight. I've never done something like this before. Recapped a race except with my wife, and so
people who really want to dive deep into it, it's other people, they don't always want to hear the depths of the conversation, but yeah, it's great.
Good talking with the three of you.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
I've wanted to talk about this, and no one wants to hear this. No one the community cares. So
and I think people either think we're crazy, or they just don't understand. And unless you've done something similar, or do something maybe not physical, but something along the same lines with the same kind of time commitment and passion. Hard to understand. So you got to find people who can understand to talk to about it. Yeah,
you make a good point too, right? About other people's perception of it. You don't just go out and start from the couch to 160 kilometers. It's incremental as a progress through life. It takes years to sort of get up. I remember I was at a point where I could barely run to the end of the street, where my cardio was so bad. And then over the years, I was doing 5K, 10K, 20K, and then first 100 mile. And it's a progression, and that's all that it is. And so, people see just the end result, and that is a long distance to bridge the gap physically. But it didn't happen overnight, and there was a lot of things that just gradually happened. So setting that course in motion eventually gets people there if they can. So it's, that is definitely a great point.
Yeah.
But
yeah. Thanks so much for doing this, Trevor. It's been great. And Ryan, I'll see you next weekend. Hopefully, Andrew, you can get out there too, maybe.
That's a 50-50. Yeah. It depends on my kid's schedule.
Okay.
So
it's the last time they're doing this race.
I know. There's also a race budget. That's the other thing to consider, because we're racing at the end of September, and then we're doing the bad thing in October. So yeah.
Nice. That's amazing.
This will be basically the end of my season. So
okay.
I already feel like the season's over. I'm just hanging on, but
it's depressing.
No.
Well, it's amazing, guys. Thank you again. I'll let you know when this is up, and we'll share it out.
Okay. Cheers.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. Have a great night.
Yeah.
Bye.
Yeah.